Well, howdy, everybody, and welcome back to another hour of really good nature. Um, we had a week off last week, and before I forget, I do want to plug the event. I know a couple of us went to it, um, and it was an event sponsored by the Conservation Foundation's Next Generation Advisory Council, their Conservation on Tap program. So they're going to be doing this at least for the next few months. For a first-time event, the turnout was pretty good. There was, I would guess, between 15 and 20 people there. This was at Two Brothers Roundhouse in Aurora, which is where the future events will be as well. But the event is 6 to 8 p.m., although I think a lot of people stayed after that because the conversation was great. There's foods, there's drinks. What was there a reason to leave? Huh? So the next one is Tuesday, January 17th, and the one after that is February 21st. Those are Tuesdays as well. So I know a couple of you had emailed me as well that tonight was the last night to sign up via the peak registration system for Good Natured Hour. We have extended that. I think they've put in through the end of February. With these two dates blacked out, January 17th and February 21st, in the hopes that maybe if it's not too crummy out, you might want to come and join the group down at Two Brothers Roundhouse. So yeah, keep that in mind, and we will be taking those 2 Tuesdays off to attend these next gen events. Really fun time. And let's see, there was something else I was going to show you. So Christmas is coming. And I know people are always trying to come up with unique and innovative gift ideas. And something I use a lot of, I use frequently, I should say, are these little loupes for looking at stuff up close. This one is, gosh, these are, I think they're less than $5 at the American Science and Surplus store. You can get nicer ones. There's some that are called jeweler's loupes. But the most common magnification is 10. This is a 10 time loupe. I have one here. I realized I have a bunch, and they were just all in different places around the house. I was doing some cleaning over the weekend, and I thought, you know what? So this is one I've had for a while. I think I got it at Science and Surplus as well. It's got 10 magnification of 10 on one end, and then if you really want to see something up close, there's a 20x on the other end. And then this one, it's probably got the nicest optics, but it's got the lowest magnification. It's a 7x magnifier. These loupes they're really handy for looking at things up close. And I happen to have some things here. I wanted to give you just a quick demo of how you use these. This isn't something that you hold far away. They work best if you hold them up close, and actually they work even better if you take your own glasses off. But you can, examine, and I wonder, should have practiced this ahead of time. I wonder if I held this up the camera. You can see how dirty it is. Yeah, you can kind of see there. So what we're looking at here, those are the seeds, the achenes. This is a sycamore seed head. And each one of those little tiny dots there is a seed. Maybe you've seen the sycamore balls that are falling off the trees right now. They're actually kind of similar to dandelions in that, a dandelion head has a bunch of little seeds with parachutes on it. That's botanically speaking, what we'd call an achene too. But there's just a whole bunch of little seeds that are contained. Let's try this one more time here. I'll hold it up again. Those are all little seeds. So this one, for whatever reason, has not busted open yet. But these are super handy. They're not really expensive. They can slip in a pocket, even if the pocket has a lot of lint in it. And you can also, wear them around your neck. But if you're looking for a gift for a loved one or yourself, maybe, it's a handy thing to have, these little loupes. Again, Science and Surplus has them if you want to go try some out. And you can, of course, order them online as well. All right. Oh, one other thing. I have this book out, and I know we've talked about this before, and it is out of print and getting more out of date. Things like iNaturalist are going to be more up to date in terms of things like county occurrences, range maps, but this is still considered the Bible of mammals in Illinois. It's the Hofmeister book. And I had it out today because of one of the things we're going to be talking about. But this one was actually given to me by a friend who picked it up at a library sale for $1. But you can often find these things online and use book purveyors for just a few bucks. And it's a handy guide to have because it has all sorts of fascinating information about the mammals of Illinois. It even goes back historically to things that aren't here anymore. Up at the front, the Pleistocene mammals that we used to have, our megafauna. And it's just like the Dick Young book is a handy book for plants of Kane County. Hofmeister is a handy book for mammals of Illinois. Just in case, you're looking to do some shopping, a couple of little gift giving tips. All righty. Like I said, in the email, we missed a week, so we've got lots to share. Let's go ahead and start. Let me try this screen share. This was something that just came in the other day from, let's see, screen here. These are, okay, now let's see if I do this right. All right. We set up another trail cam over at Delnor Woods. Now that, briefly there, that to me looked like a muskrat. Let's go back again and see this little critter. And that, see that tail? That looks like the flattened, vertically flattened tail of a muskrat. Here, I wish we could go frame by frame with this. Bloop, there he goes. So that was a muskrat leaving this hole in the bank. This is at the local folks. This is the Delnor Woods property. This is the farthest north pond, and it's a pond that at one time had actually the Beaver Lodge is still there. It was abandoned after the dam for that pond was removed, and but the beavers have returned to this pond, and the resident whose house overlooks this pond has been kind of not real happy with the beaver activity going on there. He says that they're cutting down the trees that are, it's changing his view, and he's not real happy about it. But the beavers are on Park District property, and we've talked to the city. The concern with beavers in this particular location would be if their construction activities were to start messing up the drainage for this part of the east side of St. Charles. Look at that face. If the dam were to impede drainage during a say a storm event or something. I'm sorry about that. Turn that off. But so we don't have any plans to remove them. The resident, I don't know. I don't think he can trap on our property, but if he decides he doesn't want them on his property, I know he's had his trees wrapped and everything to try and protect them. Look at this. So this is December 5th, and we still have insects flying around too, besides this beaver activity. So what the beavers are up to right now, the reason they're chewing down trees are not in this area really looking to build another lodge. They've got this nice bank den, but what they're doing is they are taking trees down so they can trim off the branches and the twigs and form what's called a cache, C-A-C-H-E, a stockpile of food for the winter. So as things get as the water freezes and it's harder for them to get around. Beavers don't hibernate, but they do create a food cache that they will munch on then all winter long, basically forming like a pantry or a larder that they can feed on. What's a little unusual about this bank then, hello, look at those feet. See, let me stop this here. So we had a good look here at the beavers. Right here, the hind feet with those big old webs, that's how they propel themselves. A muskrat, by contrast, their feet are much smaller and they propel themselves by whipping their tail back and forth in the water, swishing it back and forth to push themselves forward. But these guys use those big web feet there to move along. But yeah, this is unusual in that the entrance to this den is above the water line. This does make them somewhat vulnerable to predators. If, say, an otter were to come into the area, they might try to push their way in there. If it were breeding season and there were babies in there, a mink might try to help itself, or even I don't know if a coyote would be able to get around and get in there, but it's the beaver are somewhat vulnerable when they're the opening is above the water line like this. This is sort of unusual. The other ones we see, usually our clue to beaver activity is the food cache, which this one is working on right now, bringing in some snacks there, piling them up. And the cache then is in the water, which is obscure, and it's the water then is above, it's covering the entrance to their den. So I don't know what's up with that. If when they dug this, if the water was higher and it's gone down. But anyway, lots of beaver activity these days. And it's not just here. I think we got a couple more videos here. Oh, another rodent paying us a visit. We're going to actually be talking about mice too in just a minute. But so far we've had muskrats, or a muskrat in the first frame, and then we had the beaver activity, and now a mouse. Let's see, we'll do one more here. Yeah, the beaver's coming back in with another load of snacks that'll be munched on. I've heard that they beavers, when they are creating their cache, they like to put their favored food items, they put those down first, so then they are able to be accessed first. It's kind of the equivalent of eating dessert first. It's the beaver equivalent of instead of saving it for last, they eat the good stuff first. And nice look at their flat tails there. There's a lot of fat that's stored there in those tails. And they, by the way, they don't use those for patting down mud or anything. They're kind of like a beaver kickstand. They use that when they're standing up to chew on a tree. That helps provide stability. And then they also use it for warning other beavers when they're in the water. If they have to send out an alarm to other beavers in the area as they're swimming, they'll slap that tail and make a big splash in the water. All right, so that was some fun trail cam footage from over at Delnor Woods. Now let's continue with our screen share here. Let's go ahead and start our slideshow here. So this was actually the other day I was walking to work. I was cutting through the mowed grass, as you can see here at Davis Park, which is next to Davis School over here on the west side of town. And this caught my eye. And to be perfectly honest, is I was in a little bit of a hurry. So I actually walked by the mouse. And then I started thinking, what if this mouse is laying there dead because it had consumed some poison? And what if something else were to come along and feed on it, whether it's a hawk or an owl or a dog or a cat? So I turned around and I went back and I picked it up. It was, just kind of laying there in the grass. When I picked it up, I was kind of surprised. And we have two different mice that we see a lot in this, as far as our wild mice go. We've got the white-footed mouse and we've got the deer mouse. They're the same genus, they're just a different species. That's why I had Hofmeister out. I tend to assume that most of the mice we see around here are white-footed mice. But as I was reading Hofmeister's, I'm gonna sneeze here. Hofmeister's book, I kind of think this is a deer mouse. So they're similar looking mice, but the deer mouse, the tail is got a distinct bicolor to it, as you can see here. And then Hofmeister also says that the tail is shorter than the body, as we can see here too. It's still a pretty long tail, but it's shorter than the body length. So I'm thinking this is a deer mouse rather than a white-footed mouse. There's a saying I learned early on: deer don't climb trees. In terms of the habits of deer mice versus white-footed mice, the deer mice, they stay on the ground. They don't take over bird nests. I've had white-footed mice in my yard for years, and they have taken over a bird feeder that I have at the back of. I don't use it for bird feed anymore, and they built a really nice fluffy nest in there. And I found them in a tree cavity also at the back of my yard. And so I was a little surprised that this turned out to be a deer mouse as opposed to a white-footed mouse. One other thing Hofmeister points out is this white lining on the outside of the ear is another demarcation. That you can also look at the teeth, the way the molars are structured and everything. I don't get that technical. I just looked at the highlights here of this unfortunate little creature. But I did take it with me, and I disposed of it in a plastic bag in a garbage can, just in the off chance that it was poisoned. I don't know how it ended up there, but better safe than sorry, huh? So let's hang with this topic for just a little bit longer. Now, this is a picture I took, oh gosh, quite a while back. This was a mouse that we had found in the washing machine over at the Nature Center. This is a European house mouse. So these guys, they tend to be grayer than our native white-footed and deer mice. These guys, we go back, we can look at this. I think our native mice they're really pretty. This brown coloring they have. I and then it contrasts with the white that's on their belly. I think they're just an attractive, if a rodent could be such a thing. But the European house mouse is just grayer, it's pointier. You can see how long the tail is here. Now, this was a youngster. This was not a full-grown mouse. I don't remember what we did with this mouse. I don't remember doing anything with it. I must have given it to somebody to deal with, but I know we didn't kill it and we didn't put it in a cage. So I'm not sure where it ended up, but house mice are the imported or the introduced species, and they're grayer than our natives. And then we have here, now this is a vole. And voles and mice, you have a lot of similarities as far as diet goes. Their habits are a little bit different. Voles tend to chug along. These are the guys that leave those trails that you see once the snow melts. But look at the difference in the shape here. Similar brown coloring, but I always call these guys baked potatoes. They're very rounded. Mice are pointy. Voles are rounded, and they've got a short tail here on the end, and then their belly is distinctly gray. So it's the little and voles, sometimes people call voles field mice. It's kind of a catch-all term, a mouse in a field, but voles are sometimes called that. But they are a different genus and everything. And I thought I'd throw these guys in here too, just because I happen to have a picture of some shrews. These guys run around too. These were two different specimens that we'd found dead on the trails at Hickory Knolls. I don't think either one of these were poisoned. I think shrews, they live fast and then they die young. They have very high metabolisms, and they just tend to conk out. But look how pointy that nose is. The eyes on a shrew are very difficult to see. They do a lot of sensory input. They take a lot of sensory input in through their whiskers as opposed to their eyes. They've got a good sense of smell as well that they use to navigate by. But these guys, neither of these shrews, we've got a masked shrew down here at the bottom and a northern short-tailed shrew on the top here. These are insectivores. So if we were to be able to see their teeth, we'd see that they have all the teeth that carnivores have: incisors and canine teeth and premolars and molars, whereas rodents, they just got the two pairs of incisors up front and then the molars in the back and a big gap in between. So just a little primer about the furry things you might encounter as you go about your way walking around. So this one I threw in just because somebody had asked me if I had seen the giant hornet's nest, and I didn't. And the person that told me about it actually had thought it was farther west. This is Prairie and 4th Street. So local folks, this is the west side of St. Charles. We're looking east on Prairie, and then the cross street here is 4th Street. This is a beautiful creation that I'll bet you nobody even knew was there until the leaves fell off the trees. But it's one of the larger nests I've seen this year, and it's a little distracting once you notice it's up there. Or at least it was for me. I actually stopped the car and took a picture of it. But we see a lot of these now that the leaves are off the trees. And as I mentioned before, it's always a good idea to leave them because they do provide food for birds. This one is out pretty far on a limb, a little limb like that. I don't know if a squirrel would dare to go out and chew on this, but birds could certainly land here. Squirrels and birds are the two main creatures that will take advantage of the free food inside of a hornet's nest like this. Um, and depending on how far out on a branch they are, that'll kind of govern who tears into it. Certainly, I don't think a raccoon is going to try to go out on a narrow limb like that. Maybe a squirrel would. But birds for sure will probably open this up as we go on through the winter months. I'll keep an eye on it, and if I happen to see any activity there, I'll try and get a picture of that for you as well. But it's the season to look for these things. All right, so this next picture. So last weekend, I had to attend a funeral for a friend over in Des Plaines. And so the service was in the morning, and then there was the lunch afterwards. And as I was driving home, I found myself on Swift Road between Route 64 North Avenue and Geneva Road, which is where an enormous ComEd substation is. And it's also home to these guys here. Now, I just had my cell phone with me, so these are not great pictures, but we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Quaker, also known as monk parakeets. I had written about these guys a year or two ago. This is one of a few populations that are in this area of imported birds that were let go. There's, I don't know how many are living at this particular location. I don't know if you'd call this Lombard or Glenellen. It's either far western Lombard or far east Glenellen. They're on Swift Road, but they're still there. So when I went there before, this is a bird that nests in colonies, and they put a whole bunch of sticks and grass together, and they make these really big communal nests. And when I drove by there on Saturday, I didn't see the nests that I had seen when I was there about a year and a half ago. And so I got out. I had my kind of good clothes on, so I couldn't do well. I did get kind of muddy, but I didn't do as thorough as an exploration as I would have if I'd had more appropriate clothing on. But I did poke around a little bit, and I did not see the nests that I had seen before, or at least not in the same location. So I know ComEd, there's kind of a love-hate relationship with these things. ComEd doesn't want to do something that's going to make a bunch of bird lovers unhappy, but there's a risk of, having some big problems because there's an awful lot of high voltage around. But these birds were hanging out. This was actually on the east side of Swift Road. When I was there before, the nests that I saw were on the west side, and it's easier to see the equipment that they build on the east side on the west side location. This east side location, there's a lot of scrubby, buckthorn and things like that. A lot of teasel too, actually. So it's hard to look in to see where these birds might have their big communal nests. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get this. I don't know if I can get this video to play or not. Yeah, there we go. So they make a kind of a funny little squawky sound. You'll hear it right here at the beginning. And then here's a better look at the array of where they live. One of those birds, see all the teasel? Isn't that crazy? One watch this again. It's hard to see. Again, I was just doing this with my cell phone, but yeah, we'll just stop it there. The birds did have nest material in their mouths, so I don't think they're breeding right now, but they're probably insulating whatever their structures are that they've built so they can make it through the winter. So yeah, Swift Road between Geneva Road and North Avenue / Route 64. If you're over that way, it's worth a stop. The Great Western Trail crosses. There's a parking lot for the Great Western Trail, so it's really easy to park there, and then you can walk on the trail on either side of Swift Road. Don't wear your good clothes though, because it was the trail, the Great Western Trail in that area is crushed lime. And this was a kind of a soggy day. So yeah, my funeral, my dark clothes had some gray hues to them by the time I was done watching the birds, but close by, and they are still there. That was what I wanted to confirm. And I wanted to let you guys know about that. So let's go on to this. This showed up in my email inbox the other day. This is some trail cam footage from the Wasco area. This is actually very near Campton Forest Preserve. And the critter we're looking at there is indeed a badger. This was really exciting. Now, the people who sent it said, yeah, clearly we don't check our trail cams that often. This is an image from October 20th at 3:30 in the morning. But this is a badger, and this is near an area with some other recorded badger activity. Not so much holes. And I can't remember if I shared this picture with you. It was from last summer. One of the women that teaches at Hickory Knolls in the preschool program there had her neighbor had a badger fall in their window well. Well, this trail cam isn't too far from that area, so badgers are still hanging out there. Badgers are they're not threatened or endangered or anything, and they're an animal that if you've got some property and you've maybe got an overpopulation of, say, ground squirrels or voles, these guys are really good at cleaning up rodents like that. They're tunnelers. They like to dig, or they can dig, and they often will dig after their prey. That can cause some conflicts. I remember last spring I did a talk out in DeKalb County, and there was a woman out there who had 40 acres and horses. And so she had a lot of open pasture land for her horses, and she was concerned about badgers getting in there. Badgers, the way they dig, the tunnels that they create can be a hazard for cattle and for horses. So she was wondering, how to keep badgers away. And well, the one thing about badgers is that they do tend to move around. Even though, like I said before, this was an area where we've seen badgers in the past. I think it's more they're drawn to the food sources that are there, the large numbers of rodents in this area, but that they are somewhat nomadic, in that once they eat the available food supply, then they move along. They're not an animal we see a lot of as we get into winter. They don't really hibernate, but as it gets harder to dig after, and the animals that they're feeding on are hibernating, so they will go into a state of torpor too, to kind of rest and ride out some of the colder days of winter. But I showed this picture at a program yesterday, and somebody said, well, how do you know it's a badger? Well, let's take a look here. So these short little ears, but what's very telling here is the white stripe on the head, and then the black and white pattern here on the cheeks. Can't really see a tail here. There's not, badgers don't have too much of a tail, but this is definitely not a raccoon or an opossum. So yeah, badger activity just west of town here, and very exciting find. I was glad they sent that picture over. And now, so yesterday, and Meg, hi again. I ran into Meg yesterday over at Leroy Oaks. I was at a meeting at Creek Bend Nature Center, and I don't know how I missed this going into the building, but as I was leaving, I saw this really intriguing bird part. It's right on it was right outside the front door. And I should have thought more about it at the time of what it was doing there, but this is very near where the Creek Bend bird feeders are, and I thought maybe a bird had gotten grabbed by something going to one of the feeders, but this is a pretty big bone for a bird. This was, even though the chunk itself wasn't all that big, this was more than what you'd expect to see from, say, a sparrow or something. But boy, I was baffled by the coloring. I was trying to think, and maybe you guys want to ponder this for a few minutes too. I will tell you, I did run into Josh, who works at Creek Bend, and he actually shed quite a bit of light on this bird mystery. For one, he said that this chunk of bird was found on a hike that he was leading. I think it was last weekend. And a kid picked it up and carried it back to the nature center. And then I don't know if it was Josh or a parent, or somehow the dead bird part, well, the kid had to leave it there on the sidewalk. So that's how it got there, and that's why there weren't any other feathers scattered nearby. Usually, when a bird is killed like this and fed upon, there's lots of remains, and it was kind of strange that this was just a chunk like that. So, but this marking here was just really kind of intriguing, and I could not think of a bird that had feathers like this. And then Josh said, "Oh, well, yeah, we think it was a blue-winged teal." So here's a female blue-winged teal. I don't know if this is going to let me zoom in. This was a photo I found on the internet. Yeah, no, I don't think I can zoom in any farther, but the light and dark coloring on the wing here is, I think that's a good guess. And this pattern too here, this mottled feathering up here, that would match to the wing of a female blue-winged teal. But there's more. I tried to show you guys, and let me see. And I really, I have such a terrible habit of picking dead things up and, putting them in my pocket or putting them in the car, holding on to them. My whole office is full of dead stuff that I'm finally starting to realize a picture sometimes is just as good. So what I tried to do here was show the structure. Let me see if I can zoom in here, of a bird's bones. Birds, they need to keep the weight down so they can fly. And one of the ways to do that is to have bones that are, they're not exactly hollow, but they don't have the denseness that a mammal bone has, so they can save a lot of weight that way. And I wanted to see if you could see, yeah, that worked pretty well. See this network inside This whole piece was very, very light, and it's just another little insight into how it is that birds are able to take off and fly and land, and not have this tremendous weight that they have to deal with. Um, Hollow bones, or nearly hollow, is one of their secrets. So yeah, um, probably a female blue-winged teal. Oops, that met her demise uh, over at Leroy Oaks, and yeah, in fact, Josh, it could have been that piece was thrown in the trash and then a raccoon dragged it out. Because he said that he thought he'd thrown it away one time. But anyway, whenever you see a random part like this and you don't see the rest of the bird, chances are there's been some sort of human intervention at some point along the way. Makes it hard to tell the whole story though when that sort of thing happens. All right, so this is also at Leroy Oaks, and this again was thanks to a tip from the staff. So this is Fearson Creek, and for many years, this part of Fearson Creek was dammed up. These big boulders were placed there. I want to say it was back in the 20s or 30s. There's a couple of these boulder dams along Fearson Creek. People would put them in to create sort of a pond-like area on their property. And of course, Creek Bend Nature Center, that's part of the old Murray Mansion, and then it was the nuns' property as well. So there's history there before this was part of Leroy Oaks Forest Preserve. Human cultural history there. But so this dam was pulled out. Oh gosh, I think it's going on 10 years ago now that this dam was removed as a means of improving the water quality. Streams, whether it's a creek or a river, they're meant to clean themselves out by their flowing. The flow will keep the sediment moving. It'll prevent a lot of siltation. It makes for better habitat when the stream is allowed to keep moving. But if you throw a dam in there, and that's gonna one, cause sediment to build up. Two, it's going to prevent fish from migrating, and if the fish can't migrate, then freshwater mussels aren't going to be able to move either because they rely on fish. And there's different insects that aren't going to be able to move the way they need to. If the water isn't moving, as we see here on the upstream side of this dam, once the water stops flowing, it's not getting the oxygenation that we see happening on the downstream side. Let's zoom in here just a little bit. Anyway, the point here is that where the dammers was removed 10 or so years ago, it is now being built back up again by, you guessed it, beavers. Quite a bit of beaver activity going on along this area of Fearson Creek. Now, beavers, when they build a dam like this, they are usually then they're in this case it's a bank, and we didn't see any evidence of them building a lodge out of branches and mud, but they did it again. There's some areas on the upstream side of the dam that look to have some beaver, like where the beavers are going in and out of the water. And then there's some area of eroded bank that looks as though that might be where they are. They have a bank den of their own on the upstream side here. But the staff there said that when they started, not the staff, but the beavers started building the dam, they first put sticks down that were parallel to the flow of the stream. And then after that, then they put sticks going perpendicular or crossing the flow of the stream. And There's still quite a bit of water getting through. I don't know. This was yesterday, and beavers are active at night, so I don't know what they did last night, and they could be working on it again tonight. I've heard that the sound of flowing water stimulates their drive to want to put more mud and sticks to slow things up. But the dam that was removed is now being built back up again by the local beaver population now. So this is just upstream here, and here we can see how still the water is because the dam is slowing down the flow. And here, I couldn't tell, this doesn't really look like a cache. This looks more like sticks that they have, branches that they have felled, but then they got hung up in the overhanging branches that are right above the surface of the creek. But definitely a lot of signs of beaver activity upstream of the dam as well. And then as you're walking on the path, you certainly see a lot of areas where small trees have been cut down. And the staff at the nature center said that there had already been a fair amount of clearing in here, restoration wise. There had been work days where honeysuckle trees have been cut down, and then, as is common practice, when there's a work day like that, the staff will go out ahead of time and they will tie pink tape or orange tape around the trees that they want to save. So what the beavers did was they went in and then they cut down a lot of the trees that had tape on them. So here we can tell this is a beaver chew here, and we can tell that this is beaver activity because of this. It's almost like they measured a 45-degree angle, but that's how their teeth work, and that's how a beaver cuts down a tree. It's always going to be at an angle. If you happen to come across something like this, where they're, instead of an angle, the wood is cut straight across, that's the work of loppers, or maybe a bow saw. It's a human that's cut something down. So angled cut beaver, flat cut humans. And one other thing there. So you may have seen it in the foreground of that other picture, the dam, but there was this foamy stuff here. And sometimes you look at something like that and you go, oh, geez, what sort of pollution is that? That's just, that's actually a natural phenomenon. As plants break down, there's oils and other components in the leaves and the grasses, and the churning action of the water causes those components to foam up, and it's just a natural part of the decomposition process. It wasn't anything to get concerned about, but there was a pretty good head of foam there, actually in a couple of different places of this growing beaver dam. You can see they've got all kinds of things mixed in here. Things that they've cut down, as well as I think branches that were already nearby in the water, and then lots of mud. And then as the leaves have come down the creek, those have been incorporated as well. Oh, just amazing what these creatures can do. Okay, this next the little bit of a sad occasion. You might recognize her. This is the praying mantis that I got back in July. This is a European mantis that Jill from our restoration crew found on her pant leg when she came in from a day out in the field. And so she gave it to me, and I raised up through 2 more sheds, or instars as they call it, as an insect matures. And this was a female, and she produced one really kind of sad little egg blop that because it's unfertilized, it's not going to turn into any eggs. And then she was in the middle of producing a second one when she gave up the ghost. This was on it's either Saturday or Sunday this past weekend. I actually donated her to my friend Peggy has a little collection of insect oddities, and I had been saving a bumblebee for her and a cicada, uh, not the annual cicada, but a periodical cicada shell that I'd found a couple of years ago, and then this. So wasn't such a great day for the praying mantis, but Peggy was pretty excited. So yeah, now I've got a little more room on my kitchen counter these days, and I hope the mantis is resting in peace. One more little item here. This is for local folks. If you have been going through your holiday lights and you find they're not working, we've got a solution. This is a collection bin that's at the Potawatomi Community Center. We also have a bin at the Hickory Knolls Discovery Center. There's one at the St. Charles Public Library, and then there's an enormous bin outside of the Public Works building at over on 7th Avenue here in St. Charles. So this is an effort by the city to try and keep lights out of landfills. There's a fair amount of copper that can be recovered from the strands of lights. Copper's in high demand because of its use in electronics components. It's to mine copper it's a costly endeavor, both money wise and also the cost to the environment. Once you dig up an area like that, even though the mining company says they'll put it back exactly the way they found it, it's never quite the same again. But by recycling copper, it costs 1/10 of what it would to mine copper from the ground. So every little bit helps. And it is the season where we're getting our lights out. In fact, I've got a batch I need to drop off. I didn't realize that the lights that I have up year round in my living room, I don't plug them in year round, but one of the furry roommates had decided to have a little chew on some of the wires, and they didn't look safe anymore. So I'm actually going to be making a deposit here. And if you've got extra lights too, lights that you either won't be using or aren't working anymore, they can be recycled and be kept out of the landfill. I think, let's see, does that get us to, oh, yep, I think that's the end of our slideshow for today. And let me go ahead and stop the share. There we go. And we had one chat. Somebody had a comment here. Is it usually a house mouse that comes inside to join the family? That's a good question, Diane. Yes and no. At my house, those white-footed mice that live in the bird feeder out of the back by the fence, I do have some that come into the garage, but I also saw a house mouse in the garage. Same at Hickory Knolls. We have both house mice, which I think must have come over from the boys' home next door, because Hickory Knolls, we started out with 0 rodents, and now we've got a whole lot. And they're kind of a mixed lot. Some are white-footed or deer mice, and some are mice. I think they're both pretty opportunistic. If they find a way to get in and they can get free food and shelter, they will hang out either way. So the house mouse gets its name because they do hang out with people, which is how they came here. They are a European species, but people moved them here by accident when they moved here. So it could be either, depending on what where you live. But I see them both, yeah, even in my own garage.
It
Uh,
seems like every year when it first starts getting cold that we get a wave of mice in the house. And you know, I just assumed they were always house mice, but now after I just looked it up and it said that you can get any of the three.
yeah.
So at first I'm thinking, okay, I mean, well, I guess my next question is, how do you get rid of them? I mean, when I think it's house mice and they're non-native, I think, okay, we can trap them. And I also think with a house mouse that if you used kinder methods, wouldn't they just come right back in?
Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of torn about what to do about them.
I'm the same way, Diane. I always feel kind of sad. I do put traps out sometimes in the garage if um if I see signs of them, but I don't actually see the mice, then I figure there's not that many of them. But when I actually see the mice when I'm out there, then I figure, for every one I see, there's probably 10 that ran and hid.
Right. There's
So
never just one mouse.
right. So yeah, I'll use a snap trap from time to time, and I do feel bad when it's a native one, as opposed to a house mouse. But yeah, I get both. The apron, I guess you call it, the approach into my garage has sunken down in maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. So there's a gap when the garage door comes down.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't sit flush all the way across. There's a couple areas where it's sunken down. So it's like a freeway for mice to come in and out. And I don't really keep anything out there that I'm too concerned about them getting into. So that's kind of the agreement we have. They can stay out there. They're not allowed anywhere else in the house.
Well, I have the a similar agreement. They can stay in the basement and they can stay in the attic, but that's it.
That's it. Right? Yeah, and I have my Jimmy Cat. He earns his keep if I let him sometimes out in the garage too. Just if I see one, then I know there's probably other ones in there too. And he's a good mouser. He's lazy 99% of the time, but he does like a chase.
Okay. Well, thanks for that info.
Sure. And Kenny wants to know, how common are blue-winged teals in the western suburbs? Well, they we see them during migration, and I think they do nest around here from time to time. Kay, there was I should look at a range map to see exactly what their summer range is, but last spring I was at Lipple Park, which is the park just north of Red Oak on Route 25 in Batavia / North Aurora. And there was a pair of blue-winged teal on the little pond that has the boardwalk there at Lipple. And I saw them like a split second before they saw me, and then they spooked and they flew. But I think they can definitely be seen during migrations. And again, I would have to check and see if I wouldn't say they're a common nester around here. It's mostly wood ducks and mallards that we see nesting, but hold on a sec. But they're certainly seen here in the spring and in the fall. They're pretty birds, and they're birds. The male has a pretty distinct white line on its cheek. Let's see here. I got the Sibley guide, the non-field guide size blue-winged teal 87 here. So green wing. Okay, so it does look like it's a tiny little range map. So blue is winter. Yellow is migration. And then the tannish color, that's their breeding range, pinkish tan. So I guess they do breed around here. I have not seen any parents with babies, but so here's that white I was talking about with the male, and then here's the female, which I suspect is what we found, was what the wing was that we found, the blue wing teal. All right. Does anybody else have any questions or anything for the good of the group? If not, it looks like it's not so great outside. I hear there's some wind here against the window, and it was raining as I came in. So everybody stay safe tonight, stay warm, stay dry, and look forward to seeing you next week for some more good nature.
Pam, I didn't check the sign up, because I think I told you last time I went to sign up, which was a couple weeks ago, it didn't have the last two Tuesdays in December.
Thank you. It is up now. Yeah, so it should be up now, I should say. I got an email from our marketing manager about 6:30 that she just updated it, and we went through the end of February. So
okay, perfect. Okay,
should be there.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you next week. Thanks, Diane.
Bye.
You're
welcome.
night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, Pam.
Thanks, Pam. Good night.
Thanks, Pam.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam.
Night, Pam.